Kang Muhan tells Serpent that he has brought the flame essence just as he has promised. But Serpent becomes curious to know how much he has brought. Muhan also says 100 of high grade and 1000 each of intermediate grade, low grade, and lowest grade. The Serpent says he is satisfied now he can greatly shorten what could have taken years for him. He then asks Muhan to pick a total of 4 from the treasure he has collected over time. He also says if anyone dares to choose an item that's worth more than his efforts, he will immediately burn them all into ash. They all are informed that they have completed the Flame Essence collection. As a reward, they can pick 1 unique high item, 1 unique intermediate item, 1 unique low-grade item, and a rare high-grade item. They all become happy to know this. When Muhan asks Unsung to choose the high-grade unique item, he says he does not deserve it, as he failed to face Kim Ye-hyun because of the ghost. Muhan asks him to keep his personal life and business separate, and tells him he is the one who can become the strongest with a unique item. The Serpent says he will grant 1 wish if they have one. Muhan tells him his wish and says to kill those guys over there. But Serpent says they too have worked hard under his command, so he won't be able to kill them, and says he simply cannot grant a wish like that. Muhan says him an item equivalent to the wish. The Serpent says alright, then he will be given a unique intermediate grade belt. Kim Ye-hyun says he has gathered 100 high grades, 1000 of each in intermediate grade and low grade, and 2000 lowest grades. Serpent announces to give him the same reward as of Muhan, except intermediate grade belt. Instead, he can choose 2 rare high-grade items. Muhan says that's unexpected. He thought Kim wouldn't be able to complete stage 4 since he only defeated weak monsters. After that, the Serpent asks Seonghoon about his achievements. He says he doesn't have many companions, so he was not able to bring many. But he has got only one thing. He then shows the essence of Hellfire. Muhan and Kim are surprised to know that he defeated a boss monster by himself. The Serpent becomes so happy to see the essence and says he was able to break free from his limit thanks to him, and asks him about his wish. He is also asked to choose 3 from the treasure the Serpent has collected. Seonghoon selects Fire Dragon Armor and Hero's Cape. An inner armor is made from the skin of the volcanic serpent. He can wear the armor underneath clothes. It does not seem to hold any special powers, but it is very tough. Inner armor is resistant to all damages under a certain amount, and it is convenient to wear under clothes, so this was a good reason to choose this. A hero is someone who's always veiled in mystery. When worn, all detection and investigation skills are under rare grade void. A hero cape is a set item together with a hero's shoes, a hero's gloves, and a hero's ring. Voiding detection and investigation skills would be a lot better to have the entire set. The third thing he selects is a skill book, copy, which is a real copycat and can copy anything. This is a book containing the authority of Loki, but the contents are not intact, so it is hard to perfectly copy. He also remembers he had received a box before called Loki's Gift. He still uses the bluffing and bluster he got from the box. He says he has gotten a great deal of things from this mission, so it should not do him any harm to choose this. The Serpent tells him that unexpectedly he is not greedy and then asks him about his wish too. Seonghoon asks to talk alone, so he creates a soundproof magic. Kim Ye-hyun wonders what kind of wish Seonghoon has to need that. Seonghoon asks Serpent to kill someone, but he says he has already told that he has no intentions to hurt someone who has worked for him. Seonghoon says he has misunderstood. It is not someone here that he wants dead. His wish is that he must kill at least 400 of the people left here on this island. The Serpent then creates a barrier and asks them all not to move rashly. If the barrier breaks, they all will fall there. Soon the Cave of Flames boss, the Mid-Awakening Volcanic Serpent, has appeared. Mid-Awakening Volcanic Serpent attacks people indiscriminately. Seonghoon is allowed to kill with a borrowed knife. When a commanded creature kills more than 3 people, the number of mission accomplishers' murder count is increased by 1. He knows it would be impossible to kill 136 people given the remaining time, but using this feature, he can complete the mission. He says, "Great, things are going smoothly." Kang Muhan attacks him from the back and says how he dares to make that bastard act out like that. He asks if human life is a joke to him. Seonghoon asks him to show any proof of what he is claiming, and asks did he heard him telling the Serpent to do such things. Muhan asks if this is not true, then why he did not let other people listen to his wish. Seonghoon says because it was a personal wish, and as he respected others' privacy, then they all also respected his privacy. Muhan says if he remembers that the peace treaty was only valid in the cave, and now they are out of the cave, the treaty is no more. He then asks Baek Unsung to get all the members together and stop Kim Ye-hyun. He also orders to tie up his feet together and leave him be if he stays still, and if he tries to escape, then shoot him. He then attacks Seonghoon, who uses driving steps to dodge his attacks and decides to retreat for now, while Unsung has stopped all the members of Kim Ye-hyun. Ye-hyun thinks it'd be nice if they could recruit a ghost, but he doesn't want him that much to the point that he'd risk being in danger. Meanwhile, Seonghoon continues to run away from them and wonders how Muhan can be so powerful with just a spear. He only has 12 daggers left. Muhan is still chasing him and chooses his crazed dragon sprint skill. He says he will crush that mask of this annoying bastard. Seonghoon realizes he has to use all of his talisman arts to block his attacks. While dodging attacks, he falls from the rock. There he sees Myrini. Muhan tells her that he has sinned worthy of death, and asks her to get out of his way. He will tell her the details after he has gotten rid of him. But Myrini pulls out her sword and says she does not need to listen to the details. If he does not back off, then he will also sin worthy of death. Muhan thinks maybe both of them know each other, or perhaps they are in the same guild. He then says he will retreat this time, but asks her to have an in-depth conversation about this later. After he is gone, Myrini removes the mask of Seonghoon and asks if he is fine. She says she recognized him at once even with his mask. She knows using a book and a sword simultaneously is not a common fighting style. Seonghoon thinks at this point his only option is to admit that he is a ghost and try to persuade her. She tells him the mission is almost over, so rest for now. He immediately sees his status, and he is informed that he has cleared the survival mission and all the stats increased by 15. Bonus stats added by 10. He has cleared a B+ grade mission. Later, Jerry comes to congratulate him and says he is amazing as he has shown an excellent performance. He also says his expectations were right. He knew he would be able to excel in this mission. He asks if Seonghoon wants to rest first, but Seonghoon says no, he wants his rewards calculated first. Jerry tells him he has gathered 21 good, 294 survivals, and 451 evil points, a total of 214 400 points, and that is incredible. But Seonghoon does not seem very happy with that. Jerry tells him that he can even buy a legend grade item with 100,000 points. Seonghoon says there is so little that he can choose from. Jerry asks him if he can just take the loot of those people he killed. The only thing that he needs to use the points for would be the loot that he got on this island. He also announces to give him the title of villain for making this a true villain. The last thing he needs to do would be to tell him about the Twilight Token. When Seonghoon demands for that token, Jerry says no, the Twilight Token is not something that he can simply equip, it is a buff item. This token does not have a specific form. If he uses this crystal ball on his equipment, the Twilight Token's power will go into that equipment. Seonghoon says if that is the case, then please use it on the rune blade. Jerry says the item that possesses the Twilight Token's power does not get strengthened, it gets degraded. So if he uses it on a legend grade rune blade, its grade will decrease. Seonghoon asks if he uses it on a normal grade item, then what would happen? Jerry says then its grade will probably increase. Depending on the type of item, there could be a huge difference in abilities and options. It's best if he takes his time to think over this properly. So Seonghoon thinks this was not made to be used on high-grade items. It is probably made for people to get items that people can't get. Jerry asks him if he wants to use the Twilight Token on this mask. Seonghoon says yes, he would like to use the Twilight Token on the mask. He thinks while the other equipment is not available as the mission reward, it is rare for there to be mask-type equipment, and a mask is like a sort of bonus slot. Even if the stats increase is not much, there is nothing to lose. After applying the Twilight Token on the mask, Jerry gives the mask to him. Seonghoon sees it is an elite grade. He asks Jerry if can he extract it again. Jerry says, unfortunately, that is impossible. The status window tells the unused 132,000 mission points will be converted into 13.2 million guilds. He says that is too much money. He knows in this world, money is equal to power. Later, when he meets with his team, they say it is also a relief that everyone has returned safely. He says before they talk about the main topic, he has one question. He asks them to tell what they all think of him and requests to tell him clearly and simply. Ellie says she thinks of him as a kind oppa since he saved her when they first met. Jongwon says he thinks of him as a family and says he doesn't know what they think of him, but he wants to call him Hyung. He thinks he can understand what Ellie said, but he is surprised by Jongwon's reply. Rini says there is so many things she wants to say that she can't decide on one. A worthy rival, a warrior, and someone who knows self-control. If she really must use a word to describe him then, she would say that he is a trailblazer. He says thanks to all for seeing him in a good light and tells they will all be shocked to know that he is a villain. Ellie stops him and asks to explain what he said, as they can't understand it. He says when the mission was given, there were 3 others including him, but he could only choose to escape for his survival. He thinks he does not need to tell them the complete truth, he will tell them what happened and hide or twist a little of the core parts. Then he speaks again and tells there were 68 incidents where he has given out the information that was given to him via goodwill unintentionally. And he has also attacked others for rations before. When Ellie asks why he is telling this to them, he says that Rini found out. Because of a slight misunderstanding, he was being chased by Kang Muhan and Rini saved him. At that moment, he thought he could no longer hide the truth. Jongwon says after hearing what he has said, he doesn't think he is bad, he simply had no choice. Seonghoon thinks Jongwon is already half convinced, but for him, what Rini thinks is most important. It's important because he makes her, the strongest swordsman and a top ranker, his ally. He then says he hopes that they can survive in this world where they don't know when they will die. He says he has committed evil acts and will continue to do so, but he won't just do that for his benefit. Rini wonders how many people could be innocent in this world. Whether it's for self-defense or survival, everyone has pointed a sword at one another at least once. She says it is a little confusing for her. He says if she wishes, she can leave. But she says honestly, she doesn't care if she is a villain or not. In any case, from the moment they feel into this world, how many are there that are truly good? Miss Ellie thinks these are lies. He even throws people as bait at the start with a smiling face. She also thinks a word from her may turn his plans into bubbles. Then she says she can understand where he is coming from and thanks him for not hiding the truth from them and telling them about it. Since she likes him so far, she will just let him go for now, she says more. Jongwon rushes towards her and asks not to cry. Seonghoon thinks while his plan has worked, something is still strange. Ellie was perfect. No, she was not just perfect, she had helped him way too perfectly at that, so it is suspicious, he thinks. Meanwhile, there were not many people who were okay after that mess, just as the yellow-haired man who left Lee Juhei's group and white-haired man and many others. Those people were also not okay to be a part of or witness murder to survive on the island. It had to have dealt a great deal with their mental health. It is common to make a fortune, raise the skill of the users, start a fight between the people, witness murder, and the match competition right after the mission ends. Seonghoon says there has to be a meaning behind all of this. He has a total of 85 skill books from trading and also purchased from the schoolhouse. He plans to take a look at the copy skill that Loki gifted. A real copycat can copy anything. It is a book containing the authority of Loki, but the contents are not intact, so it is hard to perfectly copy. He can obtain any type of skill. When learning a skill with a limit, the power output is limited to 30% of the original skill. Copy can learn any skill regardless of the class like a cheat code, but it is limited to only 1/3 of the original power as compared to the financial cost. But Seonghoon fulfilled the first condition for using the copy skill. He knows the skill that can maximize the use of this copy skill is Sword Spirit. He says if he uses Sword Spirit, he can easily kill monsters with even a normal grade sword. He will be able to offset a decent amount of difference in strength too. He thinks, however, that if he only has Sword Spirit, it might work the opposite for him. The health and mana cost is the same as others, but he only gets 13 of the power. Sword Spirit is a sword skill for a swordsman, while Aura is a warrior skill that can be used on any medium like a shield. If he learns either Sword Spirit or Aura, he doesn't need to learn the other. It's impossible to learn two at the same time in the first place, but it was possible for Seonghoon. When copy skill has been used, Sword Spirit and Aura have been learned. He can use all the skills in combat with polarity reflection, and learn skills from each class with copy. Using these skills with an endless inquiring mind is his fighting style. However, there is a serious issue with this plan. It costs too much, a high cost for a low return. Later, in the match qualifier ground, Kang Mu-han says the audience is empty. It seems the authorities are trying to do more missions rather than sitting around to watch. He observes 6 out of the 13 people here are 2 or famous rankers. He then sees Myrini standing with that masked bastard. While Seonghoon says nice to meet him, Kang Mu-han. But Kang Mu-han becomes furious to see him and comes forward to attack him. But Myrini dodges his attack. Seonghoon asks Myrini to calm down and says she must resort to violence instead of a nice little conversation. But Mu-han says no need for conversation with him, as he is the one who caused the tragedy. He then asks Myrini if she is familiar with ghosts. She says yes, they are the members of the same party. She also warns him if he chooses to become the opposition of that man, then she too will regard the Heat clan as her enemy. Then the instructor arrives and says since they have very short tempers, they will hurry and start the competition. He says since they have 13 people, they will randomly select one winner by default by drawing sticks. When they hold those sticks, Seonghoon is congratulated and told he is so lucky. He has advanced by default and is asked to remain near the instructor. After the match, they will have to draw sticks again. One of the participants says damn, he is so lucky to get it immediately on the first draw. After a round of fights, the instructor says 6 people have been eliminated and 7 people remain, so they will draw sticks again. Seonghoon does consecutive wins by default. He says there are not many people who raise the luck stat, however, various bonuses from styles, item abilities as well as devoted reading give him a luck level of 250. He knows luck cannot be easily measured. It is more rational to invest in combat stats such as health or magic power. Finally, it is announced that the semifinals will start, and the qualifiers in the semifinals are Kang Mu-han, Myrini, and Ghost and Guest. Rewards are based on their rankings, so they are asked to try their hardest. Kang Mu-han says he wants to go against that damn ghost. The instructor says that is only if the ghost accepts it. After thinking for some time, Seonghoon accepts his offer. He also says since it is the semifinals, they decide to change up the stage a little and says they will give them time to check out the stage before the fight. Seonghoon knows the remaining 4 are all melee-type classes. Myrini is the strongest here without a doubt. He feels gloomy for not knowing the guest's identity. After some time, the instructor says the time is up, so both contestants come to the middle. If anyone surrenders or is judged to be unable to fight anymore, the winner will be decided. He also says the authorities expect a full-fledged fight without holding back. So the fight starts between Kang Mu-han and Seonghoon. Mu-han is surprised to see the ghost dodged his spear and thinks maybe his strength has increased since he last saw him. While Seonghoon says Mu-han does not know him at all. He has gathered all the basic information about Mu-han. He knows Mu-han will probably spin his spear like a windmill before stabbing, but he will break his momentum before that happens. During the fight, Mu-han also uses the falling blossom spear technique. It is a unique grade martial art, but countering it is not impossible, Seonghoon assumes. While Mu-han is worried that Ghost has enough strength to withstand his attacks head-on top of an agile body with powerful magic. He admits Ghost has to be a magic swordsman. He then asks the ghost where he is hiding. Seonghoon thinks he has to use all the skills he obtained with a copy. One of those skills is rapid trap installation. In this, one can place traps at a high speed during combat. His trap installation speed is doubled, and ingredients are doubled when installing traps. He then decides to cover his pre-made device with dirt and leaves and apply poison to his weapon. Once the poison is applied, it does not disappear, even in chaotic combat. Poison can be applied to weapons, traps, and objects. Even in chaotic combat, at least 50% of the poison effect will always remain. Soon Mu-han finds him, and Seonghoon says he has a good sense of smell to find out where he was hiding. Mu-han comes forward to tear off his mask, but he is being trapped. Seonghoon says he was luckily able to beat Myrini when they first fought because she stepped onto one of her traps. He knows traps are not just for attacking enemies. A trap that instantly pushes anything that touches it when placed. But depending on the use, he can use it to gain a lot of driving force. He then uses his book to attack Mu-han. As a result, Mu-han falls because he failed to predict his movements at all. Seonghoon asks to end this now. There is only one reason Kang Mi-han was losing. It is because he knew nothing about Seonghoon, yet Seonghoon knew much about Kang Mu-han. Seonghoon also knows that if Muhan gathered information on him while preparing, he would have had almost no chance of winning. Even if he only fought him a few times, he'd have a 5,050 chance of winning. It is also said that a book is not a weapon, raises attack and defense based on the grade of the magic book and the wisdom of the user. It would be an exaggeration to say the book swung by Seonghoon, who is assumed to be the current rank 1 in wisdom, is made of alloy. On top of that, when the save particle magic from talisman arts that enchants an object is released, the attack is filled with hit damage and explosion damage and becomes almost on par with an ultimate attack. Seonghoon then uses his final weapon and defeats Muhan. It is announced that the winner is Ghost. The next match is declared between Myrini and the guest. When the fight starts, Myrini cuts his head with a single attack. Seonghoon is shocked to see she won with a single strike from her blade, with her eyes closed. She then asks Seonghoon to come on and says she has been waiting for this. She says after that day, she thought about it a lot, and she came up with one answer in the end. It does not matter to her whether someone is evil or good. The only important thing is skill. So she asks him to try to persuade her with skill. Seonghoon feels like a mission panel just popped up in front of him, and the mission is to have a duel with Myrini. The reward is her trust. When they are ready to combat, he says it is the perfect stage. When she asks what does that means, he asks her to remember their agreement where they were supposed to duel with each other once a month. He says it kept getting pushed off because of compulsory missions and other stuff. But now they get to fight on such a grand stage. He decides to increase the likelihood of his win. He needs to use the mask's abilities to the fullest. But the only problem is to activate this option. He says at the least, the option activates 1 out of 4 times in a conversation, so he has to say something at least 120 times. It means he has to stall time the best he can before the fight begins. Myrini says she has trained day and night after the first loss. To be honest, she does not think she can think, but she does not plan on showing such an unsightly side of herself again. Seonghoon observed every time her vision was obstructed by something like a rock or a tree, or when she was distracted, he planted high-speeded traps and also made simple traps. However, even after all that useless small talk, his stats have increased by only 5%, while Myrini's had decreased by 4%. It is not bad, but it is also not good. Myrini takes out her sword and comes to attack with her sea blade skill, but he perfectly reads her attack and dodges with restrained movements. She then uses different positions to attack him again, which he feels disturbed as he cannot figure out her movements. When he thinks she is getting fast, she gets slow, and if he thinks she is weak, she is strong. He uses his driving steps to make himself more energetic and fast in a fight. He is also using a mask in the fight. He knows if the mask did not increase the skills related to his vision, he would not have been able to catch the ever-changing swordsmanship. On the other side, Myrini says the left hand's movements, the position of waist, the distance to dodge the sword, there are a lot of openings. If it had been anyone else, she would have looked down on them, but here the opponent is Seonghoon. He is a swordsman, although not much better than her. She also ponders a swordsman that is showing openings. She assumes this is definitely a trap, and if she tries to attack them, she will be beneath like last time with one hit. She then talks to him and says he is great, as he dodged her sea blade so easily. But he says he is nervous right now. Then she says she will make him even more nervous. When he sees him coming with such a passion, he thinks this will be dangerous, so he will need to reflect it with sword spirit. When she attacks, she sees he has created a powerful magic, and thinks he has invested a substantial part of his stats into wisdom. Suddenly, he vanished somewhere. She spread her Kai sense everywhere, but she couldn't figure out his location. Then she sees his jacket at one side, but he is found on another. She comes towards him, places her sword on his neck, and says he should not underestimate her just because she is missing a sword. He says he is screwed. He has lost his balance because he was deceived by the phantom sword. While talking, he activates his b-boying skill and becomes successful in making her downed. Blood comes out of her mouth. She says it hurts quite a bit. She says, as expected of him, he even letting go of his sword was a trap to lure her in, and also admits she is inferior to him in all aspects. But there is a special kind of determination in those who are inferior, so she will show her utmost best now. He knows although he is stronger than before, he is still not strong enough to face Myrini. If he could, he would reject her, but if he wins her in a face-to-face fight, she could become the perfect ally. He observes a high-speed trap under his feet, so then asks her to come forward and attack. She uses again C-blade again. He observes the left sword has a violent flow like a tidal wave. The right sword has a smooth flow like a gentle wave. He notices the right looks too dangerous, and he can't be too hasty trying to attack the left. If he could, he'd like to stall time by furthering the distance between them. But he can't because of the trap he is stepping on. He knows as soon as he activates this trap, he will be able to have a maximum speed 8 times faster than normal. He has to use that advantage for an attack. If he uses it to run away, his failure will be unavoidable. While she observes he is not moving a single step despite facing her attack, and assumes he may be confident in his skill. She can't wait to figure out how he will deflect the attack that she is putting her all into. Suddenly, she was careless with her right sword for a split moment. Her sword was stuck. He says, "All right, my Rini's posture's broken." Seonghoon takes control over her. She admits her loss. The result was announced as Seonghoon got first place in the competition, My Rini is at second place, and Kang Muhan got third place. Muhan thinks he doesn't know how he did it after the third place match, but Ghost claimed victory against the magic sword My Rini. He decides not to intervene hastily and gather information first. For this, he will find something out if he asks Yuyi or begs King. He will see that happens. Then, in third place, Kang Muhan is given a reward by the instructor. He is surprised to see the award is just a small bag and an ink-colored tag. My Rini also just got a bag and a silver-colored tag. When an instructor gives an award to Seonghoon, he demands something else like a weapon instead of this. The instructor apologizes and says the award categories are predetermined, so he has to accept it. Seonghoon sees the award as 30,000 guilds and a token of honor. He says 30,000 guilds is a nice profit, but the problem is this token of honor item. Later, a patch is applied in the city. The information displayed includes the first ever city will change to Divine City. Filed outside the castle is opened. Field exclusive monsters, hidden dungeons, etc. exist in the field. Siege warfare has been added and detailed functions can be explored through the temple. And one more life is added. Seonghoon says there are largely two things he can infer from this patch. First is the existence of another world. Renaming the first ever city Koreans predating Gajosian to Divine City can be seen as a means to address this city's people as a collective. Plus, if there are career positions exclusive to this city, then it means there are career positions exclusive to other places. The second is revolution. A war can occur upon contact with another country. A peaceful agreement, commerce, or becoming allies are also possible. But considering the addition of siege warfare function, expecting a peaceful agreement would be foolish. He was not sure when he got the token of honor, but seeing the patch's content, he started thinking of ways to use it. He asks My Rini to get Sa Jongwon and Ellie and wait by the place they always go to. He will be there after investigating a bit, he tells her. He comes to the temple first to get information because he believes the information is power. He knows it is a bit late considering the situation is already at hand, but he assumes the others are in the situation. There he reads books and says he had already expected other cities to exist, but it is too sudden. He guessed it was a relief that he had already somewhat prepared for this since he had saved up an emergency fund and thought up a rough conquest plan. He says of the careers that he had already researched in the original world, he needs people who know well about historians, economists, or military science. The city was in a total state of chaos. Field opening, siege warfare, change of city name, and the addition of new careers were too much of a sudden change. The thing that was gaining the most attention was the new addition of another life. Dead people won't revive, but those without an extra life all sighed in relief and joy. Seonghoon says it is just a life, and Jongwon asks if is it not good if he has an extra life. Seonghoon says yes, but the problem is that he can't just accept it naively in this kind of situation. He is inferring from the siege warfare function that other powers exist, giving an extra life in this kind of scenario, which can be interpreted as them telling them to fight harder without worrying about dying. Jongwon says that means they can't just be happy about it then. He then tells them the important information he found out from the temple. He says, first, the newly added cavalry and flowering knights are not something they need to concern themselves about. He says according to the priest, the two jobs are special positions that can be earned only in the Divine City. The rate of promotion and strength were impressive. Ellie says as he told the initial promotion speed was fast and they had good strength, so why would people who lived here for more than half a year change jobs just because of those merits? She says this is not a job made for normal rank or rankers. He says they mean to make the lowest rank and low rank users ready for war in a short time. Ellie says if there is a clash between thousands or tens of thousands of people, there is a limit to a small elite group. Seonghoon says yes, she is right. They should increase their force first. He says he will introduce Jongwon to an informant, so work with him and search for some useful individuals. He tells Jongwon to pick individuals based on their situation, skill, and character. People with a lot of mental issues in the worst situations and with the lowest rankings are the best to choose. Jongwon says it seems he has said mistakenly that they should choose the people with a lot of mental issues. Seonghoon says no, he meant that they just happen to have an additional career, so they can pick the people who are qualified and nurture them. Jongwon says it would take about 6 million guilds to nurture military strength, so how he will cover the expenses. He says that he has something in mind. He asks him and Myrini to go and choose the people who meet their standards in advance. Myrini says the only people who meet her standards are either he or other top rankers. Seonghoon says then he will rephrase that and then asks them to choose someone who has some useful skills and can be trusted. She discusses with Ellie and decides to pick up at least 5 people. She says that she will have to do a simple logistics investigation. Seonghoon admires her and says yes, please investigate items that show a big difference in market prices compared to before, items that suddenly became difficult to obtain, and items that are usually collected in large guilds. Ellie thinks it is hard to produce results in a short period even with a decent information guide. That means he perceives her so highly. She decides to walk away pretending she can't. She says she can't act innocent forever. Seonghoon Appa also seems to have noticed, so it is better to reveal it quickly. So she tells them to leave that matter to her. A token of honor allows him to own buildings that are unobtainable through the usual means. He knows it is something that he can't buy even if he pays a lot of money for it, so it must be worth it. Later, he comes to meet a person who informs him that unfortunately he can't own buildings in the city he belongs to. The only buildings he can own with the token of honor are buildings in other cities where he does not belong. Seonghoon knows that if he is going to extort money, it is better to extort it from another city. If he kills while he is at war with another city, he might be treated like a hero. The gate might have been opened and so has the field, but no one has ever gone far. The missions are graded so one can predict how dangerous they may be, but what the fields out of the castle hold are unknown. Either way, people walking around the field freely are either strong-hearted or are from a large guild. Seonghoon uses a horse to go to another city. People are surprised to see he can also ride a horse as well. He also did not expect that he could use the riding skill he got during a D mission in this situation. When he reaches the gate of the city, he says he has only traveled for half a day to reach the gate. It is way closer than he thought it would be. He observes the city is too quiet. There is no one in sight and the gates are closed. He decides to wear a mask then. When he moves further, he sees a few people standing on the far side of the gate. They warn him to stop there, and if he comes any close, they will teach him a lesson. He tells them that he did not come here with any ill intention. He just happened to be here because he was passing by. One of the men tells him that this is an unexplored city that has not been opened yet. No one is allowed access and no bargaining is allowed, so he must stop making useless moves and take a step back. Seonghoon is surprised to know that this is an unexplored city. He says it is not like it's the first ever city and it does not even have a special name like the Divine City. He also thinks that person's way of speaking is weird. He asks him if he is an NPC, as NPCs can't harm him. That person says yes, that is right. The purpose of their creation is to protect this city. But if he wants to enter this city, he will have to take down the troops and soldiers who protect the city. Seonghoon thinks now that he knows that this seems to be a city made up of only NPCs for development purposes. Even if it is not another country, he can still use the token. With the map-making skill, the areas revealed while traveling the Divine City include forests, ponds, and mountains, and all the unexpected cities that he has just found. He then decides to return and would come on another day. But then suddenly, he sees something that is so high that it is impossible to estimate. He thinks maybe it is not completely opened yet. Assuming that the divine city's defense is in the shape of a sphere or a rectangle, if the distance from here is about 300 km around the divine city, it will extend up to 300 km from east to west, north to south around the divine city. He says, but of course that is just speculation, he has not seen any monsters. He does not know if it is just because of luck or if I just hard to find field monsters. Just in case, he will have to bring my Rini with him when he comes here again. Then suddenly, a few people arrive there and they ask him who he is. He is surprised to see they are speaking in Japanese, but he can automatically understand the sense and meaning of what they are saying. He observes there are 3 swordsmen, 1 archer, and 1 magician among them. He asks them if are they all Japanese, and they say yes. He is asked to tell from where he belongs. When he says he is Korean, one of them with red hair says he does not expect people from other countries to exist. When Seonghoon tries to go back, they stop him. But he does not stop. They think if they let him live here, their location in Korea will be known. It will be very disadvantageous if their location is revealed while they don't even know their location. The red-haired man orders others not to kill Seonghoon, just paralyze him and take him to their city. If he dies, he will be resurrected in the city from where he came. Seonghoon says he just wants to settle peacefully. That red-haired man says he and his comrades are members of the Faith and Interests Guild and asks him not to make any unnecessary resistance. One member attacks him from the back, but he dodges that attack. He thinks it is not good to drag things on. He should end things at once. He then attacks that red-haired man first and then the remaining all. He thinks if he kills them, his presence would be known to the other cities as well. Then he says he has a good idea. He tied them all with ropes and hung them with the trees. When they woke up, he says they woke up earlier than he expected. When a red-haired man tries to speak, Seonghoon asks him to stay quiet, as it would be better for him. It is not like others will hear if he makes noise. After some time, he asks him to talk now since he seems to have calmed down. But he threatens him in return and asks him to let go of him right now. When Seonghoon says he does not know him in real, then that person says he would not know since he is a foreigner, then tells him they are the best guild in Japan. He then apologizes to him for their earlier behavior and promises to give him compensation too. He also says it is their first diplomatic meeting, and there is no need to do this to each other. Seonghoon says compensation is a bit tempting, but he will not trust him. So he asks him a few questions. Firstly, he asks where he has to go to reach their city. But red-haired man says he would not cooperate with him. Seonghoon says if does not cooperate, then he will release the person that answers his questions after 30 minutes of torture. So after torturing them more, he again asks the same question. One of them gives him the answer. Then he releases that person. After that, he moves towards a girl and asks her to tell him something different from what the previous person told him. When she refuses, he says it means she wants to enjoy this game with him longer and puts something in her mouth from his bottle. She falls and starts coughing. Later on, after receiving information he sees other than what Shingo said, the information told by the other 4 is almost identical. He assumes each person knows different things, so he won't have to worry too much about minimal differences. He says the unique about this is that Japan's rankers are all associated with a guild or widely known. He then talks to Shingo, the red-haired man, and says he is the most cooperative, so he will let him be comfortable. He then released him. Others wonder why he is getting released so easily, as he was also tortured the least out of all of them. Shingo is the most resistant and annoying, so they better mark him as a traitor. Another says it is only Shingo's fault that they are in this situation now. That crazy psycho bastard was about to leave, but Shingo purposefully provoked him and put them into this situation. Soon, Seonghoon says he will pass around food, no one should say anything and just eat. If any of them say one word, he will cut off his tongue right away. He then feeds them all with food. After that he starts digging, and they think he is going to bury them alive. But he says not to worry, he will not kill them. He says he is a person who knows the value of life, so he won't rashly kill them. Rather, he will allow them to make it out alive. If they are lucky, someone passing by might rescue them. Shingo says they are far from the city in the first place, and he doesn't know where they were moved to while they are unconscious, and there are also obstacles in the way, so no one could find them. Seonghoon knows killing them will just reveal his information to Japan, but he can't take them to the Divine City. That is why he thought up a jail. The trees will protect them from direct sunlight, and he has fed them enough water and food. If he takes into account that they are users, they will be able to last at least 5 days. That means he can push off his information being revealed for maybe 5 days. He then says he has done his work here, so time to say goodbye. It was short, but still nice meeting them. He then moves from there. Meanwhile, in the Divine City, Muhan is having a meeting with his guild members. It is said they have gotten together many exploration teams to make a map. They will organize it so that there are 3 rankers together just in case anything happens, and they will have them keep a certain distance from each other. When Muhan asks about monsters, he is informed that mostly D-grade monsters are there. They are not strong, but not weak either. Muhan says their guild is strong, but they are not perfect, so honestly, he is a bit anxious. He knows Kim Yi-hyun's Salvation Guild keeps creating problems with them along with other countless small and medium-sized guilds and unions plus some cooperative parties, and there are anonymous rankers, too, such as that masked dude. Then suddenly, Seonghoon also arrives there while wearing a mask. They ask him how he got in. This building should be under heavy protection. One of them comes forward to attack him, but Mai Rini, who also comes with him, uses her soul blade skill to attack back that person. Seonghoon then says nice to meet them all and tells them his name as a ghost again. He also tells them he got first place in the competition, yet he has no fame. Muhan stops him with the bullshit acting. Seonghoon says alright, then gets to the point. Mai Rini says she has prepared plenty of copies, so share it amongst themselves and give it a read. When they read it, they are surprised to know that it is about an unexplored city. It says that there are cities with foreigners too. There are Japanese people here too. When Muhan asks if is it real, Seonghoon says he does not have to believe it if he does not want to. He then tells the location of cities that are 2 days at most 4 away from here. Muhan then again read the information and said it was just as he said. Even if he is lying, this is something he can check himself quickly. There is no need to fool them with this kind of information. Seonghoon says the reason he has come here is for the public interest. It does not matter much to fight individually or not. But as they all know, the present situation is pretty difficult to handle. Some other cities and countries exist, so it is not a good idea to start internal conflicts. He then tells them that he has tried to avoid battle, but they recognize that he is a citizen of a different city and immediately attack him. So he tried to take them hostage instead of killing them, but whatever the truth may be, it is most beneficial for him to start a conflict between the 2 cities. Muhan says it means that Seonghoon wants to act all friendly with them since it looks like the other nations are going to attack them. Seonghoon says yes, he is right. When Muhan tries to say something angrily, Yu Bikwu stops him. Then Seonghoon says take this monitor as an apology and moves back. After that, Muhan asks Bikwu what he thinks about this information. Bikwu says, as the ghost said, it won't take long to check the truth for themselves, so he finds it reliable. Muhan says if this information is true, there is no reason to hide it anyway, so he orders to omit the special information but report the rest to the people. When Unsung says this information is important, so if they just reveal it, it may be dangerous. But Muhan says if other nations exist, the problem is on a different level plus, if they trust him, it is hard to believe the other nations will be amicable. He tells them to prepare well then. Meanwhile, while walking, Mai Rini asks Seonghoon did those Japanese people attack him. He says yes, he was definitely going to just resolve it using words and just run away, but they attacked him first. She then asks if he has had his second awakening. He says there is no way he would have, as this was the requirement to clear a B-grade mission. From the second awakening on, one must clear 1 B-grade mission and 10 C-grade missions. But no one has been able to clear a B-grade mission yet. The reason he is gathering a force is also to reach his second awakening. Even with the most elite, there is a limit to clearing B-grade missions with just 4 people. He could hide his identity and get into an association if needs be though. She says she has. She visited the Temple of Class Change last night and went through her second awakening. She says her class is now Sword Supreme. If she added a lot of skill and stat points too, she also advises him to go do the same. He says that she has cleared her second awakening, which means she has cleared a B-grade mission. She says it is not possible to clear a B-grade mission the regular way. She thinks this compulsory mission counts as one. He asks if clearing a compulsory mission counts the same as clearing a normal mission. She says yes, she asked just in case, and they said so. He thinks that means they count compulsory mission clears too, then the S-grade mission he did first must have counted too. It has been made clear from what she said. They're discriminating. Whether it is with ranking rewards or God's gifts, there was a feeling from the start that they were giving more benefits to the strong. So he becomes happy that he can also receive those benefits. Then he decides to give the temple a quick visit. She says so she will return to the lodgings. After coming to the temple, he again asks for his second awakening. Philip asks if would he like to do it right now, and he says yes. Then Philip gives him an option to choose what he likes. When he sees a list, he says battle dancer means he can integrate dance into battle. He would be able to fight without the help of polarity reflection. He might be able to receive more bonuses too. But he can get all kinds of skills using copy. And with endless inquiring mind's synergy effect, he has no desire to get a class change. Then he decides to go with Earth Swordsman. Philip asks him if he is pretty sure about that. He also says Battle Dancer is a pretty amazing class. It is almost classified as the highest grade class. When Seonghoon again talks about Earth Swordsman, Philip says alright. Then he is congratulated on walking the path of one of the high-grade cases of a human swordsman, an Earth Swordsman. Because of this second awakening, his dexterity has increased by 10%, and his overall stat points have increased nicely too. He assumes depending on the class and stat points, there will be an effect on the specialization of things like strength, magic power, wisdom, etc. Plus all the grades of the skills he has before increased. Driving steps and endless inquiring minds became rare high grade. Talisman arts became a unique low grade, so it has more various characters and attributes. When he looks at the newly added skills, he comes to know it is a bit of a subtle skill for a unique grade skill. This is a partial truth, all rivers flow to the sea. In this skill, it is possible for all other skills below the level of all rivers flowing to the sea to be forcibly linked and fused. An endless inquiring mind and the opposite extreme can be linked. He says at least the stat points are not bad. Thanks to the item's bonus option and bonus stats from mission clearing, all are in the upper ranks. He knows there might be more people who have already had their second awakening and are hiding it like Myrini. He decides to be careful with how much of this information he gives out. On the other side, Divine C ranks 3rd. Kenshin says it's already been 4 days, they have been stuck here, and asks his group representative how long he plans to stay here. Ryasuke, the Divine C representative, says Shingo and his companions have gone missing. This is not a problem that will be solved by just escaping. Whether it is for a monster or a foreigner, they need to prepare themselves. Kenshin says the Divine C is undefeatable, no one could defeat them. They also have all their second awakening. He also says other companions definitely got kidnapped or got stranded somewhere. Ryasuke asks him to stay one more day. He tells them Uchida will be here by tomorrow, then they will have 8 more people who have had their second awakening. He also announces to form an exploration team as soon as they come back. Then one member arrives to tell them urgent news. He says he saw another city's citizen. They appeared on a horse from far away, and when he tried to approach them, they immediately ran away, so he was not able to talk to them. But they appeared to be either Chinese or Korean. On the other hand, Muhan's fellows say after having gone on explorations based on the ghost's information, he found that another city exists, and someone tried to talk to him in Japanese. Muhan says they will assemble a proper party and meet with them now. Other members say it will be better to take more people there. After a lot of consideration, it was decided to take 46 warrior classes, 20 archer classes, and 10 mage classes. In total, 80 people were chosen for the party. They were an elite force made up of rankers, and the leaders and advisors were Kang Muhan and Yu Biku. However, there were 2 unwelcome guests that nobody had expected to come. These are Seonghoon and Myrini. He says now that he thinks about it, he has never seen it rain. Myrini says since there are clouds, they can't be certain that it won't rain. Seonghoon says he wants the rain to pour down. Muhan's fellows become curious as to why he let in that ghost dude with this group. The reason behind this is that last night, Seonghoon comes to meet Muhan and says he will let him in on information about second awakenings, so in return, takes him with them when they go to another city. He said if that information was to be released to the public, and there were a lot of second awakeners, then how would that be? Muhan thinks the reason their association had a monopoly on various rare items and benefits was because they had taken all the B-grade missions. That is why it is beneficial to keep this information as confidential as possible instead of increasing the number of second awakeners. He also can't afford to turn a ghost into an enemy, that is why he agreed to what he said. So he put him into the party as an honorary advisor. Myuhan tells Yu Bikwu not to put so much trust in Ghost as they don't know what he is planning. Soon, Unsung tells Myuhan that about 100 people are approaching them. Myuhan says they have probably noticed them too. He then asks fellows to start moving slower from now on and be prepared to cast the demon-subduing circles at any time, just as they trained. When both parties come in front of each other, Myuhan sees they all are wearing the same dress. It means they must have supplied them with equipment, like what their city has done. They're mostly made up of close-range fighters, so he orders them to be prepared to fight at any time and asks mages to have their show spell cast. He asks Seonghoon where he is going. Seonghoon says he is nothing more than an outsider, so it would be better for him, as the head of the Heat clan and representative of the association, to boldly confront them. Myuhan asks him not to say such things. He is an honorary advisor, so he has a right to be here. Ryasuk comes towards them and says nice to meet them. Myuhan says he is speaking in a different language, but he can understand the meaning in his head. He already knew about this because of ghosts, but this is still cool. Ryasuk then introduces himself as the lead of the Divine Sea in Japan. Myuhan observes Ryasuk seems to be a regular one-handed swordsman, while another one seems like a typical samurai. The other one seems dual-wielder. He thinks this is his first time seeing someone dual-wield after Mai Rini. While Kenshin also observes them and sees that Myuhan is strong, the masked man and the woman next to him don't seem strong at all. Ryasuk says he has no intention of starting a battle. Myuhan also agrees and says there is no need to have people die because of an unnecessary fight. Kenshin says other than that boring topic, he has something to ask from them. He then asks if they have some Japanese people as hostages. Several people from their group went missing a few days ago. Seonghoon asks him to show proof if he has any, or is he interrogating them just based on how he feels. When Kenshin asks about his name, he again tells Ghost. Then Kenshin says that he can't even use his real name, and by wearing a mask, he is just trying to act like a clown. Seonghoon says, but he has some manners. Kenshin becomes furious over this and says he will show that bastard his powers. So he attacks Seonghoon, but is surprised to see that he dodged his sword drawing arts with sword aura. Mai Rini also blocked a sudden attack, but she did not look surprised or anything. Seonghoon then asks to stop the fight. Myuhan apologizes and says his subordinates are acting up. But Ryasuk says no need to apologize. It is his subordinates' fault. Then they both shake hands. Ryasuk feels Myuhan has a very adorable aura. Then they say goodbye to each other and come back. After that, Ryasuk asks Shin to give him a potion and tells them they should not underestimate Myuhan. That kind of strength is only possible after a second awakening and strength reinforcement. And if they assume the woman that blocked Shin's sword and that clown in a mask are on the same level, that is at least 3 seconds awakened. Kenshin says if they are second awaking, it means they have also cleared grade B missions. Ryasuk asks Uchida how many second awakened are there at the Divine Sea right now. Uchida tells 32. Ryasuk says if they think about the prepared funds and selecting the right people, they will be able to increase that number in a week. But Kenshin says preparing the raid and equipment will put pressure on that fund. But Ryasuk says they have to do this. They don't know for certain if a war will start, but they need to maintain the upper hand against their enemies. He announces to make a unit of 100 second awakened first and says they will be on a tight budget for a while. He says he will leave this to Uchida and leave the legwork part to Kenshin. When Kenshin says it should be better if they at least find out their exact location where that bastards have gone. Ryasuk asks him not to worry and says he has already sent for that person. On the other side, while going back, Myuhan says they play pretty petty. Seonghoon says he should not feel superior because of that just. When Myuhan says Ryasuk was pretty strong, he must be a second awakened. Seonghoon says that means there are second awakened in Japan too. Myuhan says the other two also had an intimidating vibe, so they must be too. Then he asks Yu Bikwu how many seconds awakened they have. Bikwu says Ghost is listening them. But Myuhan says this is not worth keeping a secret. So Bikwu says they have 48 seconds awakened. Myuhan says then they should make that information go up a bit more and make that 150. They will just make some skilled people go through their second awakening and give them an appropriate position. He knows the external conflicts are a bigger issue right now than the internal ones. Seonghoon says they did promise to send an envoy later, but it would not be bad to trade a few for hostages. Biku says then their information will be leaked. Later, Seonghoon knows there is no one watching him from the Divine City, so he will have to give them a bit of trouble. He did not hesitate one moment as soon as he fell into the otherworld, and he carried out missions to get ahead of others. On the other hand, people were struggling at rock bottom, unable to face reality. When he comes to meet poor people, he inquires about how have been faring. One of them says he begged for money and carried out the lowest grade missions. When Seonghoon asks do others look down on him, he says yes, they look down on him anyway, like he was some homeless person. Seonghoon says he understands, it is not his fault, he can understand. Then he says he does not discriminate or look down on them all, he sees all of them on the same level as him. If they trust him and follow his lead, they won't need to trouble themselves anymore. The guild members under Kim Ye-hyun have a strong sense of loyalty and devotion, probably because of their religion, he thinks later. So he just needs to follow his example and brainwash them. First is to relate to their struggles and to comfort them. Second is to make the reason unclear. He decides to use the skill of bluffing and bluster to make them believe him. After research, he has added Vision's recipe to various poisons